What are we looking for?
Did we approve the budget?
The last meeting in April, probably.
Oh, it was that late. Take a look here. Yeah, there it is. April 25th.
But that would have been in discussions before that?
Yeah, it was presented,
About the village-wide traffic study,
Yeah.
pardon?
the traffic study that we approved when that first came out, I see.
At the original budget.
Brian said it was part of the budget process.
It was something, it was part of, yes, the budget.
Okay. So we started talking about it in March. You don't just walk in and do the budget.
Right, no, there was I presented it in, was before my back surgery. I know that, because I had to sit there, and I had back surgery on April 20th, so it was probably, there was a committee of the whole meeting at early April, or even maybe late,
Don't
I
know
would
that
say
it does
early
mute.
April.
Just check everything it's picking up. So.
Oh, it is picking up room noise, isn't it?
No problem. It's 100 times better, but.
Sure.
I forced myself out to Pennsylvania.
Keys.
Knee replacement, not better, but didn't come all the way back.
Right.
And
So I go back in December, we'll see what he says. I did visit him there. Stupid.
A lot of it is, a lot of that depends on your therapist too.
Right.
You want to look at somebody you believe in, and more willing to put in the work.
I just hope that you don't realize you get amazing.
No.
Yeah.
Not boring. Not bad, you felt good. I know. Still hanging in there.
it's actually oh yeah, that's what I do. Did I get it right? Oh, yes, you're talking, yes, no, it was sorry, it was me, and it was, come on now, oh, the worm, what's his real name though? Dennis Rod, yes. Yeah, I went to, yeah, that's right. Oh, yes, I am. What I do first. Speaking of which, I guess that is official. It's like this morning. All right. This is a joke thing, you know, for the city of state, you know, he's spitting image, you know, kind of says, no, I don't want more. It's free to.
Well, I wish it was me. I have not been walking. No.
Hey Lisa, how you doing? How you doing? It's part two of the day. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I missed it. Oh, said I missed the date, but you approached it. Yeah, that's. So where's your laptop? Really?
Yes, you are. Is this school or football or something that we didn't get at home? World Series, I'm sorry.
Hey Ken, what's going on?
Hello.
Because Matt is actually, you know, I just no longer with us. It's the new Sarah. Are you sure? I hope so.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I
You
should
didn't tell him?
said it before we get started. You should probably come on up and introduce yourself. Oh, yeah. I'll just. I noticed someday, no, you guys have met, but he hasn't been on the trustees.
That was my very first day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know about the trustees because of the,
We haven't met, but we emailed back with
Yes,
You know, it's nothing, we haven't met or talked or emailed. How you doing?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
So Seth is our new management analyst. Not so new, he's the new Sarah.
So I've been here almost 2 months.
Yes. But he keeps, yeah, so we can.
What a way to survive.
Like Sarah, yeah, exactly.
So John has a census bus. John, I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were on legislative meetings on Standard County.
Yeah, that's we both. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah.
So we have a license every day.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
Yeah. I do.
That's important.
I did. So, Matt's away at training, and Elijah, as you know, his last one was the last one, so that's just big.
Good luck.
I haven't messed anything up, so.
Yeah.
All I do is close it down to the end thing, so if I mess that up.
Yeah, I figured that.
No, Bob is not coming. He's traveling. He's in Denver.
should begin, if you guys are all ready to begin. All right. So welcome to our board meeting, regular scheduled board meeting. It's 7 o'clock on October 24th. I'd asked the clerk to please take the roll call.
Trustee Bachner.
Here.
Trustee Gillis.
Here.
Trustee Vasquez.
Here.
Trustee Brennan.
Here.
Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Trustee O'Connell. President Ducey.
Here. Okay, if I can ask everyone to please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. So we'll go right into the elected official comments and announcements. So, Eric?
Yeah. Good morning or good evening, everyone. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. So as we begin, we are mindful that we hold these meetings on land that was once and still inhabited by Indigenous people, including the Ojibwa, the Chippewa, Menominee, Potawatomi nations, and more. We will remember our nation's history and honor the Native people as stewards of this land that was colonized, and that River Forest continues to be a place many people from diverse backgrounds live and gather. Not too much to report today, except I think we aren't going to have another session before Halloween, so happy Halloween to everyone, and looking forward to seeing all those costumes out there. This past weekend I was able to attend the annual gala fundraiser for Opalga Plus, the Oak Park Lesbian and Gay Association, and they had wonderful turnout, so I hope that means good stuff for all of the nonprofits and those who are fundraising at the end of the year. It was wonderful to connect with everyone there. So
That's great.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's it.
Lisa?
I've got no formal things other than Happy Halloween, and today is Diwali, so all the best to those who celebrate.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
It must be a slow night. Good evening, everyone. Also, I have nothing to report other than happy Halloween to everybody, and please be safe and enjoy the Halloween candies.
Big
That's
bars.
it. Yes, the big bars. Yes, big bars.
Nothing to add, thanks.
Okay. Katie?
Good evening, everyone. Speaking of Halloween, I did get a chance to attend the Forest Park casket races this past weekend. I'd never been before. It was the 10th annual. It is the most whimsical, wacky event. I highly recommend it. So fun. And I will be trying to go every year from here on out. So, and then also speaking of fundraisers, I wanted to spread the word that the Juneteenth committee is putting on a coat drive. Although it's still warm tonight, it won't be for long. We are collecting new and gently used adult and children's winter coats, hats, scarves, and gloves for Forest Park, Austin, Maywood, Oak Park, and River Forest communities. And Brian, when I get the final version of the flyer, can we post it on the bulletin board out there? Great. Okay, we don't have a final version yet, but there's a couple drop-off locations. It will be starting October 28th and going for about 3 weeks till November 18th. So put aside those coats you've outgrown or have not been wearing. Thank you.
Okay, Ken?
I also have nothing to add but a happy holiday, and I'm sure you can give the time out, right?
Yeah,
for the holiday.
sure.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yep. In fact, yes, I will. It is Monday, right? On next Monday at 3 to 7, which is our normal time. And so we'd like to have all the families kind of adhere to that time frame. So hopefully it'll be a nice day and evening for the kids and I guess the adults as well. I only have a few things to report. Last Wednesday I went to Springfield for an IML orientation, which was good. It gave us a lot of insight as to the legislative agenda once the legislature comes back after the election. Lisa and I and Eric also attended a Greentown Advisory Committee. That's in full force. I'm kind of excited about it. It's next year, June, right, 2023.
Correct.
And really, Lisa and Eric Simon are very engaged in this, I guess, project and summit that it's going to be. So you're going to hear a lot more about it. But it's all the western suburbs getting together. Well, more than that, but kind of focusing key topics like transportation, housing, sustainability issues. And it's called Greentown. They had it in Rockford last year. It was really good. And then, of course, been on conference calls regarding the C4, which is that climate collaboration with western suburbs as well. It's really 15, 16 now suburbs, western suburbs have signed on to it. So very excited about that as well. That's all I have. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. If I can get a approval for 5A through F.
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Thanks.
Second.
Ken? Second. Okay. Any questions or comments on any of those items? Hearing none, I asked John if you could please read it and then take the vote.
Consent agenda item A, Village Board of Trustee meeting minutes, October 10th, 2022. B, Village Board of Trustee executive meeting minutes, October 10th, 2022. C, a right-of-way encroachment waiver and agreement for an irrigation system in the public right-of-way with the property owners at 547 William Street. D, approval of service provider contract renewal agreement with Municipal GIS Partners in the amount of $44,550. E, monthly financial report 2022. F, village administrator's report. Trustee Gillis?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez?
Yes.
Trustee Brennan?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee Bachner?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. So the one thing I did forget to mention is that in the mail, we all should have gotten kind of a notification of the smart water meters. If you haven't gotten it, you should within a few days. But we really encourage all of our residents to use it. It's looks pretty fascinating. You know, it was an effort that we took on 2 years ago. I remember you all were part of that discussion. And so now it's coming to fruition, and I think our residents are really going to enjoy the benefits of that investment. So I meant to mention that. Okay, so let's move on. We don't have anything on the separate consideration because Bob's not here. We have no recommendations of boards, commissions, and committees at this point. No unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. So if I can get a motion to approve in a second on item 9A.
Okay, move to approve a contract with Thomas Engineering for a not-to-exceed amount of $98,644 and authorize the village administrator to execute the contract.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. All right, and then we've got Jeff up there on the podium, so he'll tell us about our Thomas Engineering study.
Good evening. So as you are all aware, I'm sure, we just kind of completed a study up in the northeast corner of town. The recommendations of which will be implemented over the next couple of weeks here. We're still waiting on some materials to land, but that is in motion. During the conversation that we had when discussing the Northeast study, this body decided to take a more comprehensive look at the village as a whole, hence the proposal that's here before you this evening. Earlier this year, we issued a request for proposal seeking a transportation engineering firm who had some expertise in this field. We received 7 submittals and narrowed it down to this submittal from Thomas Engineering. The scope and budget were originally a little too high based on what we had allocated, so we did take some time to go back and forth with Thomas to negotiate scope and cost back down to a more acceptable level, which is again what is being presented to you this evening. 2 of the items that had originally been considered but had to be cut due to budgetary concerns were the investigation of a jurisdictional transfer of a portion of Thatcher Avenue from IDOT to the village, and I'll explain that in a second here, as well as a specific investigation of speed and volumes on, we have some road segments that are 2 blocks long, so some people take issue with not having a stop sign every intersection, and the concern is that people can pick up too much speed over a 2-block span. So again, because of budgetary reasons, we had to cut those 2 items. to step back a little bit, the Thatcher Avenue jurisdictional transfer. Thatcher north of Chicago and Chicago west of Thatcher is IDOT jurisdiction. So strange little division at that intersection. We have south and east legs of that intersection. IDOT gets north and west. A lot of the speed concerns that we do have are north of Chicago on Thatcher. So part of the original discussion was to figure out if what the feasibility is of IDOT transferring that jurisdiction to us as a local municipality. That was one concern that was brought up from a couple of residents who have some substantial concerns about speed in that area. But again, due to budgetary reasons, we could throw it back in there, but it's close to $15,000. So I don't know that as a village we want to take on the responsibility of this is a significant maintenance investment. And just, we can address traffic concerns without having to take ownership of the roadway too.
Right. So
bear that in mind. What we're left with in this study after negotiating the scope and the cost is we're going to be looking at 20 primary intersection locations, and those will be 24-hour vehicle counts, similar to what we did up in the northeast corner. And then we're also going to look at 3 kind of smaller non-primary intersections, and those will just get peak counts of speed and volume. We're also going to be looking at 1 count on Washington Boulevard because that was another concern that was brought up from residents previously, just the amount of vehicles heading east-west along Washington. We are going to be doing a public survey. This is similar to what we did for the commuter parking study as well as the safe walking routes to school. It's been incredibly helpful on those other studies. I think we got somewhere north of 300 responses to each. So we really glean a lot of data from those public surveys, and that's been a really helpful tool for us in the past. And we're also looking at creating a traffic calming toolbox. This is not necessarily something that's specifically tied to this project. We certainly will be able to use it for this, but Traffic and Safety Commission has long raised some concern about not knowing what tools they have at their disposal to implement. There's not a ton of support for speed bumps, and we want to remain consistent. So in order to maintain a level of consistency in how we treat these future requests, we're going to create a toolbox and kind of a grading matrix, if you will, that will help us address future issues in a consistent manner. The other thing I want to point out is that the way this was set up while the Northeast study was going on, we do not, based on what's here, we did not specify anything to that Northeast corner of town because that was a separate study going on. Per the last conversation we had about the Northeast study, we said, well, now we kind of want to have something built back into that so that we can measure the effectiveness of the implementation that we're going to be making here in the near future. So I talked to the consultant. We can certainly do that. We'll just have to shuffle one location around or something like that, or a couple. And if we want to tack on, that would just be a small change order that we'd have to come back to this group for. But that's certainly a workable thing that we can implement as part of this project. So that's kind of the study in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions or address any concerns you have.
Just, Jeff, how much is that change order? Do you have an estimate on that?
If we want to add more locations.
Correct.
It's like 12 ways to skin that cat. So depending on how intensive of a data collection we want to do per location up there, I think he said the MioVision, which is the kind of mounted cameras that record everything and automate counts, I think that was about $500 a location. So not the end of the world given the scope of what we're looking at to add a few locations to that. But I also don't know that we couldn't shuffle around some of what we already have built in to address that. So that's certainly something that we would talk about at our kickoff meeting, but I don't think it's an exorbitant cost. It's just not nothing. So wanted to make you all aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like it's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have 2 questions. Are we still able to look at the bike plan proposal to have a dedicated bike lane north of Chicago on Thatcher without taking ownership of that segment of street?
Yes, and that is still the plan. So that's part of the Des Plaines River Trail project. We're kind of at the tail end of that, being us in Forest Park. We've been in contact with Christopher Burke, who is managing that project for all of the municipalities up and down. From a funding and just staging standpoint, we're still a little bit, we're not ready to start really digging into that quite yet. I think within the next year or so, we'll start to kind of hit an inflection point where we will be. But it is still very much the plan to put in that Des Plaines River Trail, which would then kind of chew up one lane of traffic on Thatcher Avenue. So you start to weigh these things and go, okay, yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense to look at a jurisdictional transfer for the cost perspective, but also because we might have a major change coming to that route in the very near future that would address a lot of these concerns too.
And I think I read in the materials, which I thought were really comprehensive, it showed a good understanding of the issues that we're grappling with here, that they knew that. They know that that's an issue, so they're including that in their thought process as they go about this study.
Absolutely. They've also, we had talked during the negotiation about the commuter parking study, the safe walking routes to school. So they're going to take those, not only those studies, but the resident surveys that I mentioned earlier. They're going to take and look at all of that as well. So that was one of the reasons we selected them. And their proposal was extremely comprehensive. We've not worked with Thomas Engineering for something like this in the past, but they've been doing construction engineering services for us for the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years. They, as a group, have been extremely helpful to us, going above and beyond pretty consistently. And their proposal when we met to kind of narrow things down, their traffic team, who we had not worked with before, just seemed like a very professional group who knew a lot of this stuff coming in before we even mentioned it. So yeah, I'm very pleased with their proposal, and I think it'll result in a great product.
Great. My second question, that one was a follow-up.
Sure.
My second question is about the schedule on page 105 of the packet. I didn't see a legend that helped me understand what the various shading boxes meant, but the schedule goes from July of this year to May of 2023. So if you can just give us an understanding of, if we vote yes tonight, which I imagine we will, what will that work look like?
So we're essentially looking at basically just a 10-month block of time, right? From start to finish, it's 10 months. The kind of top part of that schedule is the base study, if you will. So in part of negotiating scope and costs with them, how do we start to build this proposal that I can present to you when there are so many different elements that we can take or leave? In my opinion, might be different than yours, and yours amongst each other might be different. So I said, well, let's set it up so that it is a like a base proposal. There are certain elements that we cannot live without in this study. That is that top section, kind of A. That is the control. So these are the things that we're going to have to incorporate. Everything beneath that, B, C, D, and E, those were all things we could take or leave. So I had them split those out as kind of a la carte items. Basically, B and E are going to be included, but C and D are the 2-block spans in the Thatcher Avenue that we're not going to be doing. So as you can see, it kind of doesn't matter because those are all running concurrently. But at the end of the day, again, that top schedule is what's going to dictate. It's going to be approximately a 10-month span from when we say go, hopefully later this week, to having something come back to you all as a final presentation. Or to the Traffic and Safety Commission, I should say first.
Okay.
2 presentations of which are built into this as well, anticipating one for traffic and safety and then one for you all too.
So we're thinking end of May 2023.
Well, again, that's assuming we started in July. So this is going to push, absolutely.
Like goes to July.
Right. We're probably kind of pushing to later summer.
10 months from approval.
Correct. Correct. And I also talked to them. So now, because we were originally hoping to start earlier this summer, now it's almost November. We get into winter weather. Some of the equipment that we use is pavement mounted kind of traffic counters. So with the snow plows, that becomes an issue. So I've already talked to them about that. And the concerns that I had are not really concerns. We can work around that as long as we get a week of decent looking weather. We can get stuff on the road and get the counts that we need. So weather should not be an issue at this point.
Thanks.
Sure.
So I have just a comment, and it's kind of along the lines of the jurisdiction of Chicago Avenue. And Thatcher, north of Chicago, I agree with you. I mean, we don't have to own it to, but on the other hand, we can't also say to our residents, we can't help you because it's owned by IDOT. So, because that particular strip of, road is, we're basically, that's river forest on the other side is Cook County. So we have to be their advocate because there's nobody else that they can go to advocate for whatever we need on north of Chicago or south of North Avenue. So that's my only comment. We have to be cognizant of that. And I we don't have to own it. We just have to be sure that we're good advocates.
And to be clear, just because we're not looking at the jurisdictional transfer doesn't mean we're not pulling any data from that stretch or recommending any improvements
Right.
either. So that this is incorporated into the study just like every other roadway in town. We're just not looking at the village kind of taking ownership of it.
Yep. And as long as we can make, change with IDOT, as long as they're willing to listen to us, which I think they would be. I don't know why they wouldn't.
I would hope so. With it coming off of a comprehensive study, I would certainly hope so.
Right. Agreed. Okay. Super.
Have we not expressed concerns to IDOT about that stretch so far?
What information we have at this point is probably not comprehensive enough to swing the needle for them at all. Again, coming off of a full-fledged study like this, that might kind of support our concerns a little bit more, depending on what the data says. But then you also kind of juxtapose that with the idea that there may be a bike plan coming through that would completely take up one lane and address. Maybe that does address all the concerns. So just a lot of different conversations taking place at the same time. Hopefully a lot of progress to be made in the next years or two, I would say. But no, we've not had specific conversations with IDOT relative to speed concerns in that area at this point.
Right. Which is what the residents were here for and why it needs to change. At least, yeah. Okay, super. Any other comments? Okay, then let's take the vote, please.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Okay, great. Passes. Yep. Okay, well then we are done. We have no executive session.
Okay.
There's no reason to go into executive session tonight. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn in a second.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Trustee Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee Brennan.
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Trustee Gillis.
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
President Aducey.
Yes. Okay, well, good night, everyone,
Being
and
adjourned.
go Bears. Yep.
That was an easy start, Seth.